Strange Brigade is set in the 1930s that takes so much British with it to these beautiful, lush forests that's filled with ancient and magic, and it's one of those games that really stand out on its own just from a few seconds of looking at it, whether it's the charm and personality of the characters and the narrator, or if it's just the world and level design. This is levels that are designed very much of old, and I don't mean that in the sense that it feels outdated, but that massive sprawling levels of very linear progression in a lot of senses that opens up into open areas. And it's what developers Rebellion have been doing for years. You may know their names from the Sniper Elite series, but Strange Brigade feels a lot more like their offshoot trilogy of games called the Zombie Army Trilogy. It's like you take the base of that, which is sort of a co-op shooter game. You move from area to area taking on waves of enemies. And instead here you go from area to area taking on waves of zombies and other crazy creatures of course in ancient legend, but there's a lot more variety here than what you would have gotten in Zombie Army Trilogy, and some of the enemies themselves are really unique and feel like great challenges that mix things up a little. But yeah, Strange Brigade, it has three main modes. There's the campaign, the score attack, and the horde mode. The campaign is sprawled along, I'd say, around a dozen levels. Each of them are massively long. Like, don't be surprised if it takes you about an hour to get through them, especially if you're playing your own. But everything can be played in co-op here, except for the score attack, I think. But anyway, it's one of those games, of course, where it's better with co-op, but it's still really fun on its own. You move from area to area. Some areas are huge and the vistas are beautiful. Like, I think the best way to describe this game in terms of visuals, especially when you're outside, is that it's lush. Everything feels very densely populated in terms of trees, in terms of just greenery and detail and waterfalls and all that. It's a beautiful looking game, and I think the developers have done a great job, and at least the artists have, of creating these sort of exotic or tropical looking locations that feels like this crazy weird magic thing is there. It's like Indiana Jones in a weird way, mixed with zombies and all that sort of thing. And the campaign itself is quite fun. It's possibly its weakest part as well, not for anything other than just sort of the story is fine, but I think the gameplay really kicks up a notch when you go into score attack and horde mode. In score attack, you sort of take on these smaller areas or levels, and obviously it's score attack, so it's all about getting a high score, and you do that by taking out enemies at a quick rate. You get a multiplier bonus. You sort of can use your traps and all that, and it is a ton of fun. It's for if you want to pick up and play the game rather than anything else. It's the only mode that will not take up too much of your time. Everything else takes up a ton of your time, and that's not a bad thing. The horde mode is surprisingly fun. It's what you expect is this open map. I think the laziest way to describe it is if you mix sort of the Zombie Army Trilogy or the Rebellion games mixed with the Call of Duty Zombies mode of old, not of more recent, where you have this open area and you've got to take out waves of enemies, and these rooms that you open by using up your gold, and they can give you health or weaponry or anything like that. You've got traps set around that you can shoot. That's in all modes, and it just sort of helps with crowd control when things get a bit crazy. But speaking of crazy, horde mode is where they throw the most enemies at you, and don't be surprised to have quite a few dozen enemies at any one time on the screen. And the game holds up and never sort of chugs along because of it. It's pretty impressive, especially, like I said, the visuals is pretty damn good, and the detail. I think one of the weaker aspects of the game, which kind of sounds like it's detrimental, is the gunplay. At least on Xbox One, the controller, it didn't feel as smooth as it could have. It almost felt like the sensitivity was inconsistent at times. I felt like I couldn't get the right balance of moving the gun enough to sort of hit an enemy, maybe be a bit precise, especially when you pick up like single shotguns and sniper rifles. You only have that chance every couple of seconds to pull off a shot, and it sometimes just felt like it just jumped around a little too much. I reduced the sensitivity, and I still just did it. Then I started to feel a little slow. I just couldn't get it right. Could be personal preference, but I still think it's worth mentioning anyway. But yeah, I think the this game isn't one that's gonna like, it's not gonna change the world or anything, but it's a goddamn good game to play. It's so much fun. Sort of each character has a series of weapons to choose. Each one has an amulet and a number of powers. These powers is probably one of the points maybe they need to work on a little bit, is some of those amulet powers are much more impressive or preferred, or at least, like, I don't know, impactful to the gameplay than others. Like, one is you have a charge and you hit one of the enemies and they go flying back, and if you get into the crowd, it causes an explosion, can kill a lot of enemies in one go. Great. The only thing about it is it's kind of inconsistent as well, that you feel like you've lined up the guy right to shoot maybe to like 10 o'clock, like, so back left, and then you'll hit it and he'll go all the way over to the right like 3 o'clock, and you're like, well, that's a waste of an amulet power. Where others will pull out like this magical like turret type thing that will just send off shots that will take your enemies in one go, and it's very handy. Like, it definitely helps with crowd control. It definitely sort of feels like a good support. There's a fair few others that I think there's a great sense of character to this game. You can actually, I think, tone down the amount of Britishness in it, which is kind of funny. But yeah, if British humor